Tonight, innocent until proven guilty. Reaction to Fort Nelson's woman accused of fraud. Cyber attack. The mayor of Fort St. John provides an update. Special warning. Backcountry users are being urged to be mindful of avalanches. Good evening and thank you for joining us. And we begin tonight with new information surrounding the departure of the Fort Nelson First Nation Interim Executive Director. As we reported last night, Leslie Dickey is facing legal action from a First Nation near Port Hardy. CJDC-TV News reached out to the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality, where Dickey is also serving as a councillor. Mayor Rob Fraser says there are guidelines in place and that Dickey has been placed on mandatory leave due to the community charter. The mandatory leave will last as long as it takes to resolve the matter in BC Supreme Court. Mayor Fraser says Dickey is innocent until proven guilty. Now, Dickey's term on council will end in October of 2026. She had also stepped aside from her role as an interim executive director of the Fort Nelson First Nation to, quote, focus on various personal matters. Documents from the BC Supreme Court showing she allegedly owes over $300,000 to the Gwasalanak Wada First Nation near Port Hardy. The civil claim alleges when Dickey was the band administrator for the First Nation, she racked up personal charges of $328,000, and those charges including gambling debts, personal shopping, travel, and dining expenses. The mayor of Fort St. John providing an update on a cyber attack that has had an impact on city services since Tuesday.
Today, I'm providing an update on the cyber incident the city experienced yesterday. Our cybersecurity specialists continue to investigate the cause and impacts.
Mayor Lilia Hanson taking to social media to share her message. It comes after the city activated its cyber incident response to identify and assess the cause of the attack. An outage earlier this week saw the city's IT team work to restore server, internet, phone, and email access. Hanson says recreation facilities remain open and that City Hall can continue to accept payments. However, service capacity remains, quote, extremely limited. Now, city officials telling CJDC-TV they're taking this situation seriously and are still investigating to determine whether any personal information was breached. Work remains underway to restore services as quickly as possible, and residents are being asked to monitor the city's website and social media pages for updates. The emergency room at the Chetwynd Hospital once again on diversion on Wednesday night. It's the second diversion this week. The health authority taking to social media 9 minutes after the closure to let residents know. The ER closing at 7 p.m. last night, only 11 hours after staffing challenges forced an overnight interruption on Tuesday. The hospital reopened at 8 this morning. Staffing shortages over the last 4 years continue to plague the hospital. People needing life-saving care were being asked to call 911 to be transported to the next closest emergency room that's over an hour away. Drivers are being warned to expect delays on the Taylor Bridge starting on Friday. Work on the bridge is scheduled to begin at 7 o'clock Friday night, and it'll continue until 3 a.m. the next morning. No oversized loads will be allowed on the bridge during the work, and that includes trucks larger than 12 feet wide. Dawson Road Maintenance will also be performing work along East Beaton Hill beginning at 7:30 a.m. that same day. And in both instances, there will be single-lane alternating traffic in effect during the repairs. Motorists are being advised to watch for traffic personnel and to monitor Drive BC for updates. And a heads up for backcountry users, a special avalanche warning has been issued for most of BC and Alberta, including here in the Peace region. The special warning is in effect immediately and it remains in place through March the 3rd. A slab of snow ranging from 30 to 100 centimeters thick sits over a number of weak layers in the upper snowpack, and Avalanche Canada is saying they formed during dry periods in January and February. And it's created an avalanche problem leading to serious incidents and a number of close calls. Backcountry users are being advised to stick to lower angle slopes and to choose terrain that minimizes the consequences of an avalanche. Everyone in a backcountry group should be carrying essential rescue gear and have the training in order to use it. Well, Conservative leader John Roustad following through on his promise to try and bring down the NDP government the very first chance he gets. David Eby's government has survived a non-confidence motion. The motion was brought forward by BC Conservatives in a vote that split along party lines. Late last night, Rousted told reporters earlier in that day he had promised on election night to try and bring down the NDP government at the earliest possible opportunity. And prior to the vote, Rousted said the province of BC has never been more vulnerable, blaming the Premier David Eby and his government. A helicopter crash near Peace River that killed an aerial firefighter in 2023 has been blamed on engine failure caused by a manufacturing defect. A Transportation Safety Board investigation found the helicopter, operated by Valhalla Helicopters, left the Hague Lake Fire Base in July of 2023 with an empty water bucket. Shortly after liftoff, the helicopter experienced engine failure. During the incident, the water bucket became entangled in the trees, causing the helicopter to crash, killing the pilot. The investigation found a manufacturing defect in the engine's air diffuser created a localized failure, which led to a full engine failure. The TSB says it's the first time they've seen an air diffuser failure for this type of engine. Potential human remains have been identified at a landfill north of Winnipeg, where crews have been searching for the remains of two murdered Indigenous women. The police believe the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron ended up in the Prairie Green landfill in 2022. Both women and two others were killed by an admitted serial killer. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew says the identification process on the remains could take weeks. It's Election Day in Ontario, and voters are lining up this morning to cast their ballots. The snap election called last month with the incumbent Doug Ford looking for another 4-year mandate. The PC leader citing threats of an American tariffs in calling the snap election. Bonnie Crombie is leading the Liberals into her first election since she became party leader in December of 2023. Merritt Stiles is carrying the banner for the NDP, also her first election since becoming leader. Mike Schreiner is hoping to hold on to both of the Green Party seats. Polls close tonight at 7 p.m. Well, there's a call for all federal political parties to keep funding the National Dental Care Program because, as one group is claiming, it's good for the economy. The Canadian Dental Hygienists Association says providing access to oral health care increases workers' productivity and it limits sick days. The dental care program launched for seniors in December of 2023. It has now been used by more than 1.3 million Canadians. March the 4th is the date for U.S. tariffs to go into effect. That is, unless Canadian officials can persuade the Americans and ultimately Donald Trump to reconsider. Well, today in Washington, a contingent of ministers and Canada's fentanyl czar were trying to do just that. They were talking border security and highlighting Canada's efforts to curb the flow of drugs. CTV's Judy Trinh has been following all the twists and turns.
A full court press from Canada's top security officials responsible for the border, the Mounties, and fentanyl. They have a message to deliver to the American border czar that Canada is stopping fentanyl from being smuggled into the U.S.
The evidence is irrefutable. The progress is being made. In my view, any test that was put on this country, on Canada, in terms of showing progress and meeting standards for the border, I believe those have been met.
On the Canadian border, there are now more drug-sniffing dogs, while Black Hawk helicopters track suspicious activity. In a span of 40 days, the Mounties have also made 524 arrests and seizures across Canada, including more than 46 kilograms of fentanyl and more than 15,700 pills.
And the result speaks for itself. 47 kilograms of fentanyl, over 15,000 pills, not strictly fentanyl, but other pills as well. 122 firearms and multiple arrests, over 524 arrests. So that's a success.
Less than 0.2% of illegal fentanyl seized in the U.S. comes from Canada. American officials also say that in the past month, that amount has dropped by an additional 97%. This morning, President Donald Trump posted that tariffs are coming anyway on March 4th because fentanyl kills about 100,000 Americans a year. Later, he said other nations should block fentanyl from getting into the U.S.
The country should not be allowing those drugs to come into the United States of America, and we're not going to allow it to happen. So that goes on the 4th of March.
If Trump is unconvinced by the evidence, the Prime Minister says Canada will be ready to hit back.
If on Tuesday there are unjustified tariffs brought in on Canada, we will have an immediate and extremely strong response as Canadians expect.
The federal government has prepared a plan to retaliate on $155 billion worth of American goods. It's a countermeasure that more than 70% of Canadians support. Judy Trin, CTV News, Ottawa.
And a revealing snapshot today on Ottawa's stance on immigration, as new data shows a sharp spike in deportations. Between January and November of last year, Canada deported 7,300 people. Well, that's a 95% increase over 2022. More than 3/4 of the removals were due to refugee claims being rejected. The government has budgeted more money for deportations this year. Well, Hollywood is mourning the loss of one of the greatest actors of his generation. Gene Hackman has died at the age of 95. His body was discovered yesterday with that of his wife in their home in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Santa Fe 911, what is it? Emergency?
Hello, my name is I'm the caretaker for Santa Fe Summit. I'm here past 10,000 waves. I think we just found one deceased person inside a house. What's the address here? There's no address. I'm going to wait for you at the gate.
The two-time Oscar winner and pianist Betty Arakawa both died of unknown causes. Foul play is not suspected at this time, but a maintenance worker you just heard discovered the bodies, found the front door ajar. There's also no signs of a break-in or that anything had been disturbed. The body of the couple's dog was also found. The police plan to release more information when the investigation at the scene is completed. As far as Hackman, he had an illustrious career, receiving a total of 5 Oscar nominations. CTV's Scott Lightfoot takes a look at some of his most notable roles.
I expect and demand your very best.
For more than 5 decades, he was a star of the screen, but Gene Hackman started his life as a child of divorce who lied about his age to join the Marines and then worked a number of different jobs just to pay for auditions.
Every day was like a new challenge. It was going out and trying to get that job and doing those auditions, and I loved it.
The aspiring actor joined the Pasadena Playhouse, where he met another young hopeful named Dustin Hoffman. The two were voted least likely to succeed.
We're going to have ourselves a time, boy!
But it didn't take long for success to come. His first of 5 Oscar nominations garnered for his role in Bonnie and Clyde.
I don't buy that, Irv. The stuff is in that car.
1971's The French Connection would get him his first Oscar win.
The prestige involved with an Oscar means that you have been in a couple of films that have made some money and that they can take a chance on you.
On Independence Day.
And Hackman kept capitalizing on the chances he was given, winning an Oscar 21 years later for his role in Unforgiven. But Hackman says he felt the tough guy roles limited his range.
We're cast so close to type in films that you can only do so much within your own persona.
He created the film persona of an iconic nemesis to Superman.
You were great in your day, Superman.
And though a huge star, Hackman said he always liked the idea of Hollywood, but never fully embraced it.
I guess movie star is Robert Redford and Paul Newman and kind of guys that I idolized or visualized when I was a real young guy.
In the 1980s, Hackman and his then-girlfriend, later wife, classical pianist Betsy Arakawa, moved to New Mexico. He would continue his film career. In his later films, Hackman took on comedic roles.
Comedy's harder because, it isn't arbitrary. If they don't laugh, it doesn't work.
And the problem is?
And in 2004, citing the stress of the craft as being a hazard to his health, Hackman retired from acting, for the most part living out the rest of his life out of the spotlight. Gene Hackman was 95. Scott Lightfoot, CTV News, Toronto.
All right, and please do stay tuned. I'll be right back with weather. But as we head to break, a look at today's closing market numbers.